Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You're in the right place if you're looking at Apple and Amazon as investment opportunities, which is smart. They're huge companies, but we're going to go deeper than just like the current stock price and try to really understand their strategies. And for that, we're going straight to the source. Amazon's own words in their 2023 annual report and their latest financials from Q4 2024.
Yeah, going right to the source is always a good idea. It gives you that real unfiltered view.
Absolutely. So let's jump in with a quick overview of Amazon in 2023 just to set the stage. They did pretty well, right? 12% year-over-year revenue growth.
Yeah, it's always good to see those numbers.
Ending the year at $575 billion. But that's just the big picture. To really understand it, we need to break it down by segment: North America, International, and AWS. And
each one of those actually saw increases, too.
Exactly. It wasn't just one sector driving everything. It's growth across the board, which is a good sign.
Yeah.
But now here's where it gets really interesting. For anyone who follows Amazon, for the first time since 2018, they actually lowered their cost to serve. Globally, that's a big deal.
Huge.
It means they're getting more efficient. It means they can reinvest more back into the business. And it potentially means lower prices for all of us shoppers.
Yeah, and this is something that Andy Jassy, their CEO, actually highlighted in the report. He's really optimistic about even cutting that cost further in 2024.
I'm always happy to hear about that.
Exactly. Two of the key areas that he pointed out that they're focusing on are their inbound fulfillment architecture, making that even smoother.
And making it more efficient, even
more efficient and smarter inventory placement. So really kind of thinking about where do they have their products and how do they get them to customers the fastest and cheapest?
It's like fine-tuning this massive machine.
Exactly.
To make it even more powerful. So, okay, they're amazing at retail. We all know that.
Yeah.
But what about their advertising revenue? It's actually up a huge 24% year over year.
Wow. Yeah, and what's even more interesting is that they're actually finding creative ways to kind of weave advertising into their entertainment ecosystem.
Oh, I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're introducing things like sponsored TV ads, reaching viewers on different platforms, and even putting ads into Prime Video shows and movies.
That's smart.
Yeah, it's like this advertising empire within their entertainment part of the business.
I like that.
It's pretty interesting.
And speaking of empires, we can't forget about AWS. Remember how we talked about Amazon lowering their cost to serve? AWS played a huge role in that.
Absolutely. And throughout 2023, they were really focused on helping their customers optimize their cloud costs using things like Graviton chips, which give you better performance at a lower cost.
That makes sense.
S3 intelligent tiering, which helps you manage your storage in a more efficient way. And of course, savings plans for predictable costs. But then we saw this really interesting shift towards the end of the year. AWS wasn't just about saving money. It was about securing these big long-term deals and migrations.
So it's like they're showing this confidence in the future of cloud computing.
Absolutely. And not just from Amazon themselves, but from the businesses that are increasingly relying on AWS to grow.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And it's not just AWS. They're confident against how. Amazon's also becoming increasingly bullish on Prime Video as a standalone profitable business.
And you can see why when you look at their content, they're investing heavily. They've got Thursday Night Football, they have the Lord of the Rings series, and a ton of other shows and movies that people actually want to watch.
Yeah, people are really enjoying those.
Exactly. And let's not forget the ads they're adding to Prime Video as well.
Sure.
They're strategically monetizing this platform while at the same time building it into what could potentially rival Netflix and Disney+.
That's a really good way of putting it. It's an entertainment powerhouse in the making.
Now let's talk long-term vision, which is crucial for any investor. Amazon's really big on empowering builders.
Builders?
Yeah, these people who are obsessed with improving and expanding what's possible, taking those ideas and turning them into reality.
It's a good way of putting it.
It's a core part of their culture, their investment strategy. And they've been doing this from the very start,
Yeah, right back to their roots. Yeah, if you go back and look at their 1997 shareholder letter, they really emphasize this builder mentality, and they haven't abandoned it.
And what I find really fascinating is their concept of primitives. Have you heard of this?
Primitives, I have not.
It's really interesting. Think of them like building blocks for innovation.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah, like Legos, you start with these very simple pieces, and you can combine them in all sorts of ways to create complex structures. Amazon uses this idea of primitives to create new products and services.
So give me an example. Like, how have they actually used these primitives?
Well, the great example is AWS. It started with basic cloud computing tools. Those are the primitives. Developers started using those, combining them, and it evolved into this incredibly diverse platform that we see today.
So it's like starting simple and then building up and up.
Exactly. Their fulfillment network is another great example. They took their expertise in logistics and turned it into fulfillment by Amazon or FBA, allowing third-party sellers to leverage their infrastructure. And then they extended that even further with Prime, bringing those capabilities to merchants on their own websites.
So it's like they're constantly finding new ways to use these building blocks
Yeah.
to build even bigger things.
Exactly. It's all about having these modular systems that can be applied in different ways.
That's a really cool way to think about it. And they're not stopping there, right?
No, they're not. And what's really fascinating is that they're applying the same thinking to healthcare now.
Healthcare. Oh, wow.
Yeah, they have Amazon Clinic for virtual care, One Medical for in-person care, and Amazon Pharmacy for prescription delivery. And they're building these healthcare primitives as we speak.
So they're really trying to revolutionize how we access healthcare.
Exactly. And they've even hinted at combining these with their existing grocery infrastructure from Whole Foods and Amazon Fresh. Imagine the possibilities in areas like wellness and nutrition.
That's huge.
Yeah.
It's like they're creating this entire ecosystem around health and well-being. This is all really exciting, but we need to be real about risks too. Right? Amazon stock is known to be volatile. They face a lot of challenges.
Absolutely. In that 1997 shareholder letter we talked about, it also stresses the importance of long-term thinking.
Right. It's not about the short-term gains.
Exactly. Amazon is focused on market leadership and creating value for their customers as keys to creating value for their shareholders. They're not afraid to take big swings, even if the payoff isn't immediate.
Which is something that any investor needs to understand. So what are some of those risks that they're facing right now?
Well, their international operations come with their own unique challenges, different regulations, different customer preferences.
Right. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah. No, and they're under a lot of scrutiny from regulators, especially when it comes to competition and data privacy. The report even mentions some ongoing investigations related to competition rules, which just highlights the complex legal and regulatory landscape they have to navigate. And of course, like any company with massive amounts of data, they're vulnerable to security breaches and data loss.
That's something they have to constantly be thinking about.
Absolutely. And protecting their intellectual property is an ongoing battle as well.
So yeah, plenty to think about there. But to get a better handle on their recent performance, let's look at their Q4 2024 consolidated financials.
Okay, so in Q4, their net sales continued to climb, which is a positive sign showing they can keep growing revenue. However, their operating income took a hit, mainly due to increased expenses.
What are some of those expenses coming from?
Well, they attribute part of it to ongoing investments in technology and infrastructure, which they see as crucial for future growth.
They're playing the long game here.
Yeah, it's about building for the future. Another interesting point is the impact of foreign exchange rates on their international segment net sales there actually increased, but it was largely driven by currency fluctuations.
So that's kind of outside of their control.
It just shows how these global economic factors can really influence a company's performance, even if they're doing everything right.
You can't escape those global trends. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Amazon is a complex company with a lot going on. They're doing well in some areas, facing headwinds in others. But one thing that's constant is their drive for innovation and their long-term focus.
I agree. It's this constant push for innovation, this long-term thinking that makes them so fascinating to watch both as consumers and as potential investors.
And that's exactly what we're going to dig into even deeper as we compare them to Apple.
I'm excited to see where this goes.
Me too. Let's get to it.
Now, remember at the beginning you were talking about wanting to compare Amazon with Apple as an investment.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's super important to remember that everything we've talked about so far has just been about Amazon, right? Going deep into their reports and letters.
Yes, straight from the horse's mouth.
Exactly. To really make a good decision about investing, you've got to do the same kind of deep dive with Apple.
So what would that look like for our listeners? Like, where should they even start?
Well, I'd say the same place we started with Amazon, those financial reports.
Okay, so there's shareholder letters, earnings releases, quarterly filings, all that good stuff.
All of it, yeah. And you're going to be looking for the same kind of insights we talked about with Amazon. How's their revenue growing? What are their key segments?
Where are they putting their money? What are their big plans for the future? All of that.
Exactly. And you want to be able to compare how they're both performing on those same metrics.
Apples to apples.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not just about the numbers, though, right?
Right.
You've got to think about their strategies, their competitive advantages, what risks are they facing?
So for Apple, we'd be looking at things like their iPhone sales, how much money they're making from services, and their investments in new areas like augmented reality.
Right. Yeah, all of that. And also think about things that are harder to quantify, like their brand loyalty. their global reach, and their ability to just create these products that people really love.
Yeah, they've got that magic touch.
But of course, they've got challenges too.
Like what?
Well, competition in the smartphone market is fierce. You've got to keep up with changing consumer preferences, and there's always the risk of supply chain disruptions.
So many things to think about.
And that's why it's not just about saying, oh, this company is the best. It's about understanding which one aligns with your investment goals and your risk tolerance.
So different strokes for different folks.
Exactly. One investor might be totally drawn to Amazon's aggressive growth strategy and their willingness to just jump into new markets and shake things up.
Right, always pushing the boundaries.
While another investor might feel more comfortable with Apple's more established track record and their focus on premium products and services.
It's about finding the right fit.
Exactly. And that's why it's so valuable to actually get into these detailed reports and shareholder letters, because it goes way beyond those headlines and lets you form your own opinion based on the facts.
And by getting that deeper understanding.
And that's what we're all about here, empowering you with the knowledge to make those informed decisions. Now, to give you a little something to chew on as you go and do your research on Apple, how do you think Amazon's approach to innovation with those primitives compares to how Apple innovates?
Ooh, that's a good question. It makes me think about how Amazon seems to be building these adaptable, modular systems that can be applied to all sorts of different markets.
Yeah.
Whereas Apple seems more focused on creating those beautiful integrated experiences within their own ecosystem.
Exactly. So as you're reading through Apple's reports, ask yourself, what are their building blocks for innovation?
Yeah, what are their primitives?
Right. How do they approach new markets, and what does that tell you about their potential for growth in the long run?
Those are some really insightful questions to consider.
I think so. And remember, this is just the start of your research journey. There's so much more to uncover about these two companies.
And to help you along that journey, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We'll be back with more deep dives, unpacking complex topics, and giving you the knowledge you need to make smart financial decisions.
Until then, happy investing.
So we've got these two giants, right? Amazon, the master builder, always expanding, always experimenting. Then you've got Apple, sleek design, creating products that people just can't seem to get enough of.
Two very different approaches.
And that's what makes it so interesting. It's not about which one is better. It's about which one fits your investment style. You know,
Exactly.
are you drawn to Amazon's boldness, that constant push into new territory? Or does Apple's focus on that loyal customer base, that premium experience, does that feel more like your strategy?
Right.
And I have to say, after this deep dive, I'm even more curious about how these different approaches will play out long term. Will those Amazon primitives really keep giving them an edge as they move into healthcare? And who knows what's next? Or will Apple's devoted fans and their ecosystem, will that prove to be more valuable in the long run?
I mean, it's a fascinating question, and there's no easy answer, but the key takeaway for anyone listening is don't just skim the headlines or follow the market day to day.
Right. Do your own research.
If you want to invest smart, you got to understand the companies, their DNA, and what makes them tick.
And that's what we're all about here, right? Giving you the information you need so you can make your own informed decision.
Exactly. Informed decisions.
So after our deep dive into Amazon, I bet you've got a ton of questions about Apple.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Time to start digging into their reports and filings.
Exactly. And look for those details that give you a real sense of the company's vision. What challenges are they up against? What's their potential?
And if you enjoyed this kind of analysis and you want more, hit that subscribe button. We've got more deep dives coming your way, covering all sorts of industries and investment strategies.
Until then, good luck with your research and happy investing.